and you should be good to go. Over there. Okay.
So I'll do another reintroduction here. So why don't you start the broadcast?
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just perfect. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the November ABCD-GIS presentation. Good to see a full room here, and today it's kind of more than a presentation. It's a hands-on workshop learning how to use this new mapping technology called CARTO that Harvard has purchased a subscription to, and we're fortunate to have Jeff and Andy from CARTO to walk us through how to use it. And with that, I'll just turn it right over to you, Andy. You can take it from here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for having us here. We're excited to make some maps with all of you. We thought that we would start out by just giving an overview of what CARTO is and kind of where it sits in the wide collection of tools that you can use to make maps. And so what we're going to do, after Jeff finishes, we're going to give a brief introduction to what CARTO is, and then show some maps that people have made off of it. Since we have a very wide collection of different softwares and programming languages that we can plug into, the variety of maps is really huge. And also being open source, there are so many different options for connecting with other things that we see a lot of really exciting innovation coming out of maps that are made for web maps specifically. And so I'll let Jeff take it over.
Yeah.
Now.
So CARTO at its core is a database. It's a Postgres database that uses SQL to filter and query data inside of the database. And on top of that, we have PostGIS. Has anybody used PostGIS or Postgres in work? Yeah. Okay. Good. So what we've done is we've taken that system and we've added a UI on top of it, and then also taken the databases and made them into APIs, so you can use them either very quickly and efficiently in a UI, or you can do some more extensive coding and you can use the APIs to build whatever you would like. And so when I'm just going to go right into the interface, right? So when you open up CARTO, you have two different sides of the interface that you're looking at. One is your data sets, and those are the tables that you're going to be using. That's your data. And you can see a list of Andy's here. He's got.
Those are the shared ones.
These are the shared ones. And then these are all the data sets that he's collected, 982 of them. And
one cool thing about the shared ones, and sorry to interrupt, Jeff.
No, it's okay.
Is since you guys are on an organization, if you have a data set and you want to share it with somebody, you can find them. You can select the data set and then find another person in the organization, and you can share it with them either as read or write access.
Yeah.
So you both can contribute to the same data set, and then maps you make off of that data set will be updated based off both your edits.
This is actually one of them that you and I shared the other day. I was doing a map of Atlanta housing, and I needed some quick input on something, and I shared this data set with him, and he helped me figure out how to do a SQL statement on it. Did that SQL statement, and then I saw it completed. So you have. So in your datasets view, you have datasets, you have shared datasets, and then you can do liking, and then we have some standard data library pieces, basically some of the top level census data and road data that you might want. But we also have a data observatory that we'll talk about in a little while. So CARTO is composed of maps, and datasets go under those maps, and they become layers within the maps. So these maps are all the maps that Andy has made. And I'm going to go right into one of them. So when you click on a map, you see layers on the left-hand side. So all your data sets in a map are represented by a layer. And so if in the map view, you have I'm clicking this too much. Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. So you have your layer. You can turn your layer on and off here like that. San Francisco lights up or goes dark. You have the base map that you're using. And if we go into that, we can see CARTO provides a certain amount of base maps that are standard. Does anybody know Stamen, the design firm? They designed a series of maps, base maps for us based on OSM data. And so we've got positron and dark matter, and then we've got both of those with labels below, and then no labels at all. I actually default to the no labels one just because I like to kind of bring the labels back later. And then some other very specific use base maps. And then some of Stamen's fancier maps are here. We've got Toner, which is very popular for first-year design students. You see that a lot in first-year design student work. We've got here maps with the whole range of, let's see, which one are we doing? With all the data that here has collected and put on maps. We've got a transit one, we've got day, night, we've got the satellite view one, or the, yeah, let's see, is it coming up? Come on.
So is that
aerial?
Is that the only satellite map, or?
It is that we've got built in, but you can add anything you want, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay. So this is, the next tab here is basically custom ones that you can add. So if you have a ZXY link to any tile set that you've made, you can bring it in here. You can add your URL here. You can bring a Mapbox map in, WMS, tile JSON, or NASA. NASA is a day and night base map that you can see. This is actually, it's just at a very high level, but you can bring any of your satellite tiles that you have already made in and use those. So and then this is where you would store all your WMS, your custom WMS base maps. So that's actually the beginning of the raster question, the beginning of the answer. You can bring, so if you create a tile set somewhere and you want to bring that in, and it's got, say, land cover or something, and you want that data to be inside of your map at the base level, this is where you would add that. Okay. So I'm going to change this base map back to positron light. Okay. So next if we go into the layer here, you can see the data that's here. What is this data set? This is
just CCTAs.
Okay, this is just zip codes. You can see all of the data in your data set. So if we go down here, we can flip over to the data set, and we can see the columns. We can also go back to the original data set by clicking this link, and it'll open up in another window. We'll come back to that when it loads. And you can see your data laid out with the values represented down here. It's in either a histogram if it's a number, or in some sort of category format. This data set isn't quite doing. It shows you a little insight into your data. You can see how many null rows you have. You can see how it fits into the top 10 categories if you want to do a category map, or you can see a histogram of it. And then it also allows you to add widgets, which we'll cover in a few minutes. And then here in the data set view, you can do, there we go. You can change data types, and you can reorder. So you can rename your column, change your data type to a number, date, string, or true or false. And then you can add new columns or delete. So you can do a lot of data management right in this view. So let's go back to the map. The next tab here is analysis. So if you wanted to add an analysis, this is probably where you're going to be most interested in. This is like the newest feature that we have. These analyses used to take a lot of SQL, which Andy has done at length, and then packaged them into little packets for us here. And so this is where you georeference. This is where you pull data in from our data observatory, which has a lot of base census and ACS data for the US and about 5 other countries right now. And we'll show you that. You can join data here, find the centroids of any polygons, filtering, grouping, areas of influence. These are buffers and drive times, intersections, and then down here we get into a little bit more. This is a Moran's eye, and this is Markov chains. And then this is calculating clusters. So what I'll do on this one right now is just add what would be good on this polygon?
actually, if you go back to my map dashboard.
Yeah.
And to the Brooklyn poverty one.
Oh yeah, great. Okay, so actually, and this already has that analysis applied. So if I go into this layer here, I can see that Andy's already done an analysis, and he's added one. So he basically just added in that same interface that I added. He added one, and it shows up here, and it's the beginning of a chain. So you can chain together these analyses. If I add it, I can add another one here right now, and then we would iterate on the information. But it asks you for it gives you the source, and this is actually this is a Moran's Eye on Brooklyn poverty data. So it was the population over poverty in each census block, and the target column is poverty over population, so normalized, and then the significance is 1. That's very high.
Yeah, but you can use the widgets to then filter it.
Oh, got it. Oh, that's beautiful. And then you can look at the nearest neighbors and see and start to find some patterns. So, and then what Andy has done here is added the widgets for the results of the Moran's Eye over here. So you can start looking at the lows and lows and highs of a Moran's Eye, which I think, are you going to explain that a little bit more in detail?
Not today.
Okay. So who knows what Moran's Eye does? Okay, so roughly, and I'm going to give the simplistic answer for this. It basically takes, I'm going to undo this, and then I'm going to redo it. Let's delete it. So here are all of the pieces of Brooklyn. And then we're going to add the analysis. We're going to detect outliers and clusters. Add analysis. Target column is poverty.
So I'm only seeing like a few available analysis. I don't see all those that you had.
Oh, you don't?
No, I just have a couple that I can see when I do that analysis.
And which
Something wrong.
So we actually do have this room until 2 o'clock.
Oh, okay, great,
So here I am.
awesome. So is anybody else seeing just a limited amount of analyses, or is is everybody seeing what all the ones that I was seeing?
Is this the difference between a site license and not?
I was looking first.
No, he's actually on the site license. And you are. I haven't spoken to you yet.
I'm Daniel Sheen, I'm from MIT.
Oh, there you are. I've never met you.
Yes, a different Daniel Sheen. You might have met the
Good to meet
one
you.
at
Yeah, that we work with.
Columbia. But do you work with him?
Yeah, he works at CARTO.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the other one. Nice to meet you.
I mean,
Okay.
do you want to review just making an account? I mean,
Sure.
does anyone need to make an account at this point?
I'm getting an error message that doesn't recognize my hard domain.
Oh, which one? What is the domain?
FAS.harvard.edu.
Okay, I'll set that up in just 1 second. When I get through this, then
Okay, I know.
I'm gonna-
to get to this.
no worries.
Don't let me be here.
no worries. I'm gonna when Andy takes over, I'll set you up. Okay, so
I can do this instead.
okay, that sounds great. Do that. So we're gonna switch. Andy's gonna do a Moran's Eye.
Yeah, so if you've not done Moran's Eye before, it finds areas that are very similar to each other that are in the same neighborhood. So you're finding areas where there are high values around other high values, or areas where there are low values surrounded around other low values. And then it also finds areas that are different than their neighbors as well. So you can find like outliers. So if we're looking for poverty, maybe there's a housing project that's really skewing the percent poverty in a block group, but it's next to like an affluent area or something like that. And so we can use this tool to find these patterns in the data set. And if you've done Moran's Eye before, the important outputs of it are the cluster classification, so that these regions where there are a lot of high activity, which we would call a cluster, and regions where there are low activity, and then the outlier ones. And I'm going to put the significance up at 1. We're just going to get everything, and the significance tells you whether the pattern that you're observing is likely random or not. So it's a p-value score in this case. And then the neighbors, you're just estimating how many neighbors any of these individual block groups would have. So in this case, like something around 5 seems appropriate for it. And then I'll just hit apply, and it's doing the calculation behind the scenes, and it looks like nothing happened. done this analysis before, there's a window that pops up that kind of gives an overview of the analysis. But since we're doing it again, it didn't pop up. But it's adding these 4 new columns to our data set here. The 2 important outputs of the analysis are the quads and the significance. And we have documentation that kind of explains all of this stuff if you're more interested. But if I select that information as a widget, get the summary of the data over here. And if I want to explain it a little bit more, we can style by any of those outputs. And so if I click this auto style button here, we get something like a legend, and then we get the cartographic output of that as well. And if you've used Moran's eye before, you know that having the significance value is a very important quantity for identifying any of these clusters. And having a small significance value means that the patterns you're observing are likely not due to random chance. And so I want to use the filter here to find things that are below 0.05, which corresponds roughly to like a 95% confidence, like based off of, like, you know, if you have a normal distribution, 2 sigma away from the mean is 95.5%. And so we're going to do a filter on that. And so these patterns that we're seeing are likely not due to chance. If you're familiar with New York City, this area up here is Greenpoint. It's a fairly affluent area of Brooklyn. The area down here in South Williamsburg is in a more impoverished area as well. There are places like this over here, like Prospect Park and Brooklyn Heights, that are more affluent as well. And then East New York is a place where there's a lot more poverty. And so what this allows us to do that normal choropleth map doesn't is it finds these statistically significant patterns where if we made a choropleth on it, we'd have to rely on our eyes to try to find those patterns. And our eyes are not great at finding patterns in randomness all the time. And so it's good to rely on the statistics here for that. But this is just one of the tools that we're adding to it. And do you guys have any questions?
Yeah.
This one, yeah.
The white area, is that the area that's not statistically significant?
Correct, yeah. So the things that get filtered out are considered not statistically significant, yeah. Yeah, and then I guess what we could do is like clear this and then style them by how significant they are. And we're going to be adding like a styling on the ledge, or on this over here, so that it reflects what's on the map, but we don't have that right now. What we can do instead, maybe just we can make a choropleth map by value off of that significance number. So in this case, so low significance are the areas that we are more interested in, and you can see it identified like the South Williamsburg, Greenpoint, and some of those other areas as well. But we can use the widgets to remove those because those are the areas that are not as interesting to us, and so we don't necessarily need to show those. Okay.
Let me jump back in.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're just going to be passing back and forth. Okay, so he just showed you a little bit of the styling. I'm going to jump in here, and so if we want to, we're actually going to go back just for a second. I'm going to make a new map, and we're going to go to we're going to start a new map. So if anybody wants to follow along, this is actually a really good time to do that. Going to go back to the beginning, new map, and it's going to ask us what kind of data we want to use. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the USGS. We're going to grab all the earthquakes over the past 30 days, and we're going to bring them in, and we're going to style them, and then we're going to do some filtering on it. So let's go to USGS earthquakes spreadsheet.
So you want to do that in a different browser tab?
Yeah, I mean just to go get it. Yeah, and then you go to this page, and I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the list on the right-hand side. This is where the USGS hosts all of its current information about earthquakes up to the 15-minute interval. So this is the past 30 days, updated every 15 minutes. We're going to grab all of them, So what we want to do is we can see if we hover over this, you can see down the bottom here, it's a CSV. So the file types that we take are CSV, shapefiles, KMLs, Excel spreadsheets, all the common ones. And then we take GPX, which is GPS information, and GeoPackage, which is a slightly rarer one, but we use it for exporting our data, and we can bring it in as well. And there are some other, so once we get there, there's a link to show you where you can find out more about the formats that we can bring in. So we're going to copy this, copy link address, and then go back here. And if we had the file on our computer, we would just kind of either drag and drop it right to this little box or browse, but we're going to take something from the internet and add this URL here. You can see we can also go from Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, Twitter, and your ArcGIS data can be brought in if it's on a public server. So submit, and then it asks us how frequently we want to update it. We're going to do every hour so that Andy gets a fresh set of earthquakes every hour on his account.
Thank you, Jeff.
Down here, you can have it automatically guess your data types or not. I find it pretty accurate, but once in a while there's a data set where I don't want it to, specifically Boston zip codes, I don't want it to guess because the zeros just disappear when it turns it into a number. So that's the one case. And then press connect data set. You guys having trouble over there?
I didn't grab the link completely. You had it up there.
Oh, really? Okay, the spreadsheet, this one?
So I think if you search for like USGS earthquake spreadsheet
Yeah.
or something.
We actually have, I'll let everybody catch up. You good?
That was just good. I mean, the first demo you did about ramp drive,
Yeah.
I was looking everywhere for a data set that had a numerical column where I could try that.
Yeah.
And I spent the whole time looking, couldn't find one.
Oh, we can do that with the earthquake data sets. So yeah, you know, I probably should have just jumped. Yeah, and that's kind of what I intended, and then I riffed on it, and but we're caught up
So
now.
if I want to add a spreadsheet from my machine, I would connect data set and then data file.
That's right, and then just drag it in.
Yeah, and then just if you hit browse, you can, it'll open.
Or can I do that?
Yeah, you can do that as well.
So now you can see that we have all the earthquakes, and these will update every hour. So any new earthquakes that come in will be in this data set. So if we zoom in, we can see California has a lot of earthquakes, and they're all kind of piled on top of each other. I'm going to change the base map to take the labels down a little bit so that they're not hovering over everything. And then if we go in and we want to style these a little bit, we can see that, first of all, that we have 8,074 earthquakes. So we can add that as a widget right on the right-hand side just by clicking that button. And we can go edit that widget, which we'll come back and do in a few minutes. But then let's style these and get a little deeper into, like, we'll make them look like something, and then we'll add a dashboard, and we'll do some, Andy will do some analysis on them. So you can do multivariate styling on points. So you can take two different numbers, columns within the data, and make them and reflect and make it data-driven design. So we're going to do the size on this one by magnitude. So we're just type MAG. Dots will size themselves between, I'm just going to go ahead and just do the full 1 and 30. Let's do 1 to 30. Okay, and it adds a legend there. And then I'm going to take the stroke off. And you've got the earthquakes laid out. Now what I can do next, so they're still kind of like one big blob. So we might want to change that. So we can do blending under here. We can multiply them against each other, or screen them, or overlay them. And those are just some that kind of give you a little bit of depth into, so you can see what they actually are, like where the density is. But the next thing we can do is show the depth in a value as well. So we're going to do depth here, and we're going to make it red like that. I'm going to take that blending off because I'm going to do another trick, which goes into our CARTO CSS. So these are flat circles. And at some point in the next month or so, we're going to have an opacity, geopacity, so we could actually just make these opaque right now. But it's a good opportunity for me to show you CARTO CSS for a second. So if we want to do some deeper, if anybody knows CARTO CSS, and does anybody here? Has anybody used it? Okay, it's a great language that is very flexible. I'm actually a cartographer and designer by trade, and I work for CARTO just because I was a partner and making a lot of maps with them. And I found CARTO CSS to be the most flexible system that you can really get really deep into some really nice design. So if I flip this over, you can see all the code that went into making these look like this. And so you can see the marker width, ramp magnitude, range 1 to 30, all the things that I set there, the marker fill, and then the range of colors. And you can change these. You can change these to whatever you want. And marker fill opacity. I want to change this marker fill opacity from 1 to 0.5. Them transparent so I can see them over each other. So now you can start answering some questions like where all the earthquakes happening. And if you go down here into the Salton Sea, it's not there anymore because it was more than 30 days ago, but there was that swarm. Did anybody hear about that swarm of earthquakes that was happening? Earthquakes, so I just obsess over them. But so now we've done a little bit of what we want. It's redrawing. Once you start making those changes, you kind of have to commit to the CARTO CSS because the specialized changes you make on the backside don't reflect forward into the UI yet. But there's a lot of documentation on CARTO CSS on our site, so you can look up Google CARTO CSS CARTO, and it'll take you right to the documentation, and all of the different the variables you'll need are there. So next we want to add a pop-up for each one. This is still drawing. This draw. Are there any questions? Am I moving too fast? Yeah.
So you were saying you make a change in CSS and then you go and they're like, oh, I just want to change that all together, and you go back, it'll erase all your changes?
Well, I would have the choice to erase my changes here. I could say clear, right? And or I can just go back and I can just change them here too. So you can actually, I pretty much edit in this all the time. But just a pro tip, I start here and I build out a basic structure, and then I flip over to CARTO CSS and I fine tune. Just because there's a little bit more flexibility in the language, and not everything is in the interface yet. So once you start getting into some advanced, you kind of want to stick in CARTO CSS. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. So if you want to add a pop-up to this, we can just basically go to the pop-up panel, and we can do a hover. So we can do a hover for the magnitude.
It's like we're having internet problems.
Am I?
I don't know.
I just got kind of used to the blue bars. They're really hypnotic. Okay, let's let that load. I'm going to switch to my phone, maybe.
We might not want to jump off
What's the
Hangout.
calculation?
Oh, right.
So the formula widget up there, it's adding up how many things are in the current view.
So it'll make the legend based on the view.
So that's
as
the
opposed to
client
what's
side
already-
thing, it's just adding up what the client knows.
I'm sorry.
So it's a client side operation, it's just adding up what's in there, within that map.
Yeah.
And actually, I think what's happening is the recording that we're doing, because we're actually broadcasting this on YouTube on air, is taking up some of the bandwidth that this is doing.
I'm sorry.
So it'll do its calculations on maximum. minimum.
Mine's running the same way.
Is it?
Sure, yeah.
But
Okay, so we have the hover now. So we turn that on pretty quickly. And then we can also do a pop-up, so we can see the place location source, I think is the right one, and then magnitude and depth. And here we go. So the legends here, they're automatically generated. And I'm going to switch. We'll actually see the pop-ups pop up in a minute. The legends are generated automatically, and they show you the minimum and the maximum of the range of data that you have on there. And you label the layer itself what you want the legend to be called. And there are two different types of legends. There are the color. So you see the color ramp here, and then the size. And this just shows proportional sizing for each for how the earthquakes are going to appear. And you can also flip this over on the back end and add whatever you'd like too. So this is just basic HTML. You can do a couple of divs if you have something you want to add to it. If you wanted to actually do a custom graphic design piece and put that in there and do a custom legend, you can do that. And if you do that, you have the flexibility of turning this on and off. So I can turn these on and turn these off as I'd like. And then you can customize them with prefixes and suffixes. 3.1, I don't know what that.
Or suffix might be KM.
KM?
For suffix.
Oh. And you can add a title. Okay. So now we have a basic map, and we're gonna, so we can show, I'm gonna send it to Andy so he can see it, and he's gonna want to do some analysis on it, I know. So I'm gonna share it here. And once you share it, the share button at the bottom right hand side shows you whether it's published or not. You share, and then you go to the publish page. You're on a team, so you're going to see names here that you want to share within Harvard is going to show up on this list. So you can search for them, and you can find them, and then you can share it. You can do read access on maps, and you can do read and write on data sets. You can all jump into one data set and start editing. So when you publish, I have just started this, so I have not changed the privacy settings on this yet. You have 4 options for privacy. So private, at the default as a consideration, and you can make it public, only accessible with link, which means that somebody would have to know exactly where it is and have that exact link to get to it. Password protected, which you entered a password to give somebody, and they can only get in with that password. And then private completely, where nobody can see it but you. So we're going to set this to, and we're going to publish it, copy the link, and you can see my basic map here. It really is, CARTO is running slow right now. So just to give you a little context, we're releasing a lot of pieces of the builder today. So there are things going on the back end. I've asked them to slow down and stop working for about an hour and a half for us, but there might be some slowness and also when you have a whole bunch of people on a team jumping in and working on an account, you get a little bit of lag, but we find that actually when we're doing team events and we start making maps together. So here we are. So this is the map that we've made, and I'm going to go ahead and change this layer name, and then I'm going to show you what happens when you re-update the map. So right now it says all month 14, and that's kind of a boring name, so we don't want that. So let's go back here, and I'm going to double click on that and call it earthquakes. If I can spell it.
And maybe add a widget too, so you can show the interaction for them.
And then, yeah, and we're going to add a widget for, I'm going to go right into the layer and we're going to find all of the magnitude, we're going to do a magnitude widget. So we can see all the magnitude, the histogram of all the magnitudes that are on screen right now. And then we're going to publish that again. So we've made our legend change, our layer change, and then we added a widget. Go back to the beginning, share, and then update. And then if we go here, so now we've got the earthquakes, and this is not showing up. Let's find out why that isn't showing up. Oh, there it is.
You just give it some time.
Let me back up a little bit. My magnitude one isn't working, my widget. Okay, well, you can see the updates, and what we'll do is I think we'll move on and do a little bit of filtering so we can get just the earthquakes in California, and then we'll see that pop up in a few minutes. It might be cycling through. So I'm going to hand this back over to Andy, and he's going to narrow it down to some specific places.
Sure.
And do some analysis on there. Cool. Are there any questions?
Yeah, is there a way to use the data in this map with other clients?
You mean to use it in multiple maps?
To use the data with other desktop client or even from the server to display with other layers and other.
So yeah, so you could either export it directly from the layer or the map, or that you can export the data set itself.
So it's impossible to expose the data as a service.
You can, and you can also link to it from, you can do a SQL query that brings it, you can bring it into other environments. So you could actually, if you can pull from a URL into whatever you're doing, you could pull directly from a data set.
So I can show you an example of that. We have an API called our SQL API that allows you to access data that you have in your account. And so the format would be your account name, carto.com. CartoDB.com still works. We lost the DB recently. And then you just do API, B2, SQL, and this is all documented as well.
You can see the ones you've done in the past there.
And yeah, and so I have a table in my account called allmonth_3, so it's another earthquake one. And I can do just any arbitrary SQL query against that table or any other table in my account. And so I'm just doing the first 10 rows from that table. And it's just a custom API call. So if I want to do only like 5 rows or 4 rows, it returns those values back. If you're only interested in like mag depth in the geom, you can just get that back. And then if you want to have it returned as like a GeoJSON file or a shapefile, you can specify that there, and it downloads it as the shapefile there. And so it's a really nice way to share data sets with colleagues, like if you want to get them a subsample or something like that. So like another thing I could do is I can say where random is less than 0.1, and then I'm randomly sampling my table for 10% of the table. And then I can do format equals CSV and file name equals earthquake 10% subsample. And then saved it to that. And then if I open this file, you can see that we just got a CSV for that subsample that we're interested in. So it's really flexible based off of whatever query you want.
The big long numbers with the geometry.
Yeah, and then these are well-known texts, and you can cast those to geometry types.
There is no way to get tiles in place of vectors.
Yeah, so you can get tiles as well. So we have a Maps API. And in our documentation explains how to get tiles. So you can use CARTO as a tile server, essentially. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Any other questions?
Why
Okay.
why is that widget not working?
Not sure.
Anyway, we'll come back and it'll work.
Okay. Okay, cool. So one thing we wanted to talk about is we have this, we developed this technology called the Data Observatory, which provides access to tons of different open data sources like the United States Census and Spanish Census and Brazilian Census, and a lot of other valuable data sets. And I want to show how we can kind of use this in practice. And since we're working off this earthquake data set, I think, Jeff, you've already seen this demo. I did it at NASIS. But what if we wanted to find how many people live within like 50 miles of an earthquake that occurred? And a lot of earthquakes happen that are super weak. You can even have earthquakes with negative magnitude values because it's on a logarithmic scale. But above a certain threshold, that's when we care about the earthquakes, but the weaker ones maybe we're not concerned about. And so what we can do is we can filter those And if you're used to SQL, all that's going on behind the scenes is we're just doing a where clause to filter out the rows that don't meet the condition. But we want to filter by magnitude. We want to find earthquakes that are like greater than, so let's try greater than 6. It's a fairly strong earthquake. And we don't really see much, so that's good. Maybe if we zoom out, there's some in that part of the world, but not any in California or the United States. So we can maybe like put it down to like 4. Let's see what happens there. And it doesn't seem like we have much there. So let's try it at like 3.2. And it seems like we're having internet problems, I'm sorry, or it's just kind of slow.
Are you? Is yours slow too, or is it just ours? It
I
is.
think we're all going through the same switch or something at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm checking to see if we're having any lag problems. Right
Okay, cool. So there we go. And another thing we can do is,
Oh, Oklahoma.
yeah, so you can see the swarms in Oklahoma. My sister lives in Kansas City, and she felt an earthquake from Oklahoma not too long ago. So another thing we can do is add another data set. If you go to our data library, you can find a data set of states. Another thing you can do is just, so what I did here is I hit add. So I want to add another data layer to this map. And then I'm just going to search. I have tons of data sets in my account. I'm just going to search for states. And I already have one from natural earth data in here. In your accounts, you probably have fewer data sets, and some of the ones that we have from our data library might be there. I'm just going to import this one. Hopefully you all can get one quickly as well. I'm going to add that as a layer. And there are states, and we probably want our earthquakes to be on top, so I'm going to reorder the layers over there. And you can see the earthquakes pop out now. And I'm going to do, oops. And so if we're only interested in earthquakes that happen in California, we want to limit our state layer to only be California, and then we're going to use the shape of California as a filter for grabbing earthquakes. So we're just going to ask, do these earthquakes intersect California? If they do, keep them. If they don't, get rid of them. And so I'm going to filter this layer down again. And I'm going to do this filter by column value, and I'm going to filter by the state name. And I think there's like a name. Yeah, name. And then I want California. I want to show it. Hit apply. Boom. And once the tiles load, there we go. There's California. And you can see there are several earthquakes, fairly weak ones in California. But now we're going to use the California shape to filter our earthquakes. So I'm going to go back to our layers list, dig back into our earthquakes, add an analysis, and then I want to ask the question, do the earthquakes intersect with California? So I'm going to do intersect second layer. And I have way too many data sets in my account, so this is really slow for me. I think it'll be faster for you. Well, what it's doing is populating this field with all of my possible data sets, and then also recently applied analyses. So we're going to be able to find the California like analysis that we just applied there. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about the SQL interface that you had before,
Uh-huh.
where you were able to write your SQL query.
Uh-huh.
Did you adopt that one, or there is a way to still have it?
Yep, for sure. I'm going to open a new map, so I'm going to wait for that to finish. So if you're in dataset view, if you go down here, you can go into like developer mode. It's the dark side. But yeah, you can just do any arbitrary SQL query. So you can do like where like ST intersects. I don't know. So you can do like PostGIS or whatever in here.
Basically, you can avoid doing this, and you can pre-customize your layer
Mhm.
and fit layer to the interface without passing through the parameters.
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and then that's how CartoDB was, and how in the rebranding, we a lot of people did not want to learn SQL, and so we felt forced to develop these kind of analytical workflows.
Wait, so can I clarify that again? So here, if you set up some SQL, that acts as a filter on this whole layer. So if you found it as the layer name, you don't look for an analysis name or anything like that. That's just if you do it through the interface.
Right.
Add an analysis, and then it's available as a different name.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and then so let's import this layer. Let's create a new map from this one. And the default SQL for it is just select star from that table, but you can do whatever query you want here, and that query represents that data layer. So it doesn't have to be the full table. And then from that output, you can do analysis off of it. So you're kind of creating your own analysis node that you can apply other nodes to. Okay, cool. So we have our thing here. Towards the top of it, we can see these analyses that we applied. B0 was our base United States, and B1 is the California filter layer. So we can just select, we want that California thing to compare it against. I don't care about the point and polygon counts in this case, so I'm just going to leave the default. Hit apply, and it tells us what new data was added as a result of this. We don't need those. And then all the other earthquakes disappeared. We only have the California earthquakes now. And so now we can get closer to asking our question. So if we wanted to find out how many people live within 50 miles of the epicenter of any of these earthquakes, the next step we need to do is figure out what 50 miles is from the epicenters. And so we do just like a spatial buffer. And that is in our Create Areas of Influence tool. Besides just doing buffers, you can do drive time based off distance or time. I'm going to just do a straight old buffer because earthquakes don't follow roads necessarily. I'm going to choose 50 miles. And I'm going to keep all of the individual events intact. Dissolved means if they touch, you merge the polygons together. But we don't need that here. I'm going to hit apply. And the coloring just defaults to that blue, so I'm going to change it. Ooh. Here. And then just change something that sticks out a bit more. And so those are our buffered epicenters. And then now we want to count how many people are within those. And so what we do behind the scenes to count that is we find out how many block groups intersect each of those shapes. And then it adds up the number of people in each of those block groups. And for the block groups that are on the edges, we calculate the percent of the block group that falls within that shape, and then just do a percentage based off of that. So it's just a pretty basic interpolation. We're going to add a new column, so we want to find the total population. And we want it for the United States. Measurement we want, it's within age and gender. You can get total population from the census and choose total population. And this thing comes up, but I can't remember, how many credits were there?
We have like 250,000 for Harvard.
Yeah.
I'm
And,
actually kind of interested in what you guys see when you do that. So if
And I-
anybody does it, I want to see.
and I don't believe we'll charge on this ever, so don't let this scare you, please.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hit apply, and then it's doing that calculation. It's counting up how many block groups are under there and how many people are in those block groups. And so it can, it's not the fastest operation, but it takes a lot of work behind the scenes. And there's our output. And then just to show that we actually have something there, we can just do a basic choropleth off that total pop. And we have one earthquake that happened that had 9.1 million people who could have been affected by it. So somewhere down here in the LA area or San Diego area. And maybe we want to make a proportional symbol map off of this instead. I think that might visualize it a bit better. And so we can do another analysis just to collapse those buffers down to points again. And we have a centroid thing in here, right here. And we want to just categorize them by themselves. We don't want to group them or anything. And then we're just going to sum up the population for each of their selves. It's just 1 equals 1 sort of thing. Hit apply, collapse them back to points, and then now we can just do proportional symbol type map off of that output value right there. And then you can just set the ranges for the sizes. Awesome. And then I get chills when I do this. I really love this demo because the data set changes. So every time the data set changes, it reruns all of those analyses again. So you get this like live updating map that tells you the population of people who are affected by it.
So
I have chills.
two quick questions. I think it's great. The first is so are these vector tiles that are being generated every time?
They're not. These are raster tiles, but there's a trick. We're moving to vector, but it's not. We're working on making the editor really great, and then vector is one of the features that's coming out.
So the second question was about projections.
Uh-huh.
So like you had like miles, you had kilometers, but the values are coming in as decimal degrees. So
I'm sorry, for which one?
well, you buffered by miles or something, and you know the locations of the earthquakes are decimal degrees, so there's some magic happening there.
Yeah, so in
Your data sets are in different projections. Do you have to worry about anything like that?
So PostGIS takes care of that. PostGIS has a data type called geography. It takes you out of lat long, and then it does calculations on the oblate spheroid of the surface. So it works in meters for doing that.
So basically, it's just using the standard PostGIS library same level.
Yeah. For the spatial part, we rely heavily on PostGIS. And Paul Ramsey, who invented one of the fathers of PostGIS, he works on our team. Yeah.
So can you export the results in a CSV?
Yeah.
In terms of the affected population and the.
Totally. Yeah. So if we go into.
That's a massive set of.
Yeah. So you can see the analysis chain here. And then if the data set.
Export your analysis chain as well?
Yep. Yeah. So there are a couple ways we can do it. You can export the whole map as a .carto file, and then you can send it to somebody. And when they load it into their account, they get the same map. So it's a good way to, like, if you're teaching with a map that you want to provide as a template for students, you can provide that, and then they can add their things to it.
And the pieces of that is a .carto file is basically a zip file with geo packages for the data, and then JSON for all the styling, analysis, and SQL that you would have in there, and HTML.
And then if you want to export any of the individual data sets, you go into the layers and hit export data, and it exports the topmost one. And then you can choose the export format. So if you want to send it as like a shapefile, you can just download it like that. And it prepares it for you.
And that's then the result of the analysis you're exporting.
Yeah.
And there will be another option coming when you hit that 3-point menu. So you can just like make another layer out of it. We had some other things to prioritize before we did that.
So the styles don't come with it when you export the layer. Only if you do the package thing.
Right.
On top of that.
Exactly. So you get only the data if you export from the layers, but you get everything if you do the map. And you can host those maps. A lot of companies use them for branding. Like if they're doing branded maps, they use those as starting points for their designers to say start.
And
You have a question?
Yeah, on something like that, can you correlate the distance with magnitude
correlate the distance.
when you have to run it each time? So let's say it's a 3.2 magnitude and you want to go 20 miles. And then the higher the magnitude, you want to go, say 50 miles, it's up to 5, where you have to run the report each time.
Yeah, I guess right now we don't have the flexibility. I think what would be great is choose your radius or choose another column to have it in. So like if you have a formula for associating magnitude with distance and you would add that to your data set, I think that's a really great feature request here. But we don't have that right now. But yeah, I think we should have it.
And there's a field calculator coming as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you have all the earthquakes up there, and of course you run into the issue of how do you see the patterns in that stuff? Are there, and we went through different ways of symbolizing points by size and so on, but are there mechanisms, I think I've seen them, in CartoDB for creating a surface, like a creeping surface, or
Yep.
or even a simple heat map. You know, I know there's like torque, use torque for paint. Oh,
Yeah, so yeah, we have visual ways of showing heat map visualizations. They're not as quantitative as we would.
can they be based, okay, so it can't be based on the magnitude value.
It would,
Be based on the count.
yeah, essentially. We do, so it's on our roadmap, and I can show you, we even have the source code for it. It's on our roadmap to have contour outputs for our data. My team works on this library called Crankshaft, which brings in new analyses. And within here, we have things like contours, and we're doing a lot of experiments with how to expose creeping as well, because I think that's an especially hard one because it's so nuanced.
The dot density one is amazing.
But we, at the API level, we have that functionality, but we don't have it built into the interface yet.
Dot density map
Yeah,
is not in the interface yet.
not yet. It's coming, and we have some examples that I can show you. I'll pull them up, but I don't want to interrupt.
Sure. I think I'm pretty much done. Yeah.
So maybe I'll do a quick torque map of the earthquakes,
Mhm.
right? So one of the things that you can do with the analyses, I know that there was some interest in seeing animated maps of these, maps of the data. If I pull out one of these,
Maybe just start fresh.
yeah, okay, let me do that. So I'm going to show you how to animate over time and then do the nuances of that. So we're going to start a new map. We're going to bring in our same data set, all month 14. So many.
Yeah.
And we're just going to go straight up. We're not going to style them or anything. We're just going to show them over time. And let's go into, let's take this away again. And go into style. So this is the aggregation panel. And we focused a lot on aggregation because we saw our customers bringing in tons of data, and we can handle so much data. We can, we have, bless you, we have 50 million points in one demo, and that was done about 6 months ago, and I think it's moved way beyond that now. So we found ourselves with the challenge of how do you help people represent their data in ways that lets dots be stacked on top of each other, when lots of things happen in the same place. So we have a couple of simple tools like the pixel block rectangle visualization, and you can do all kinds of styling on that. You can do it by sums or averages or any of the operators that you would normally use. We can do hexagons. We can do hexagons. You can do basically, you can represent them by admin region. And right now we only have 2 of these in here. We have countries and provinces, which is states for this purpose. And you can basically, it joins them to those geographies. Then we have, which a lot of people probably know about, we have the animation. And you can actually do them over time. So when we get here, we have a choice between points and heat map. And where did they go? Let's just refresh, see what happens. Every time I touch this, it stops working today. Have you noticed that? It's me.
You're absorbing the internet.
So I'm going to just get started on this. And we're going to change this to time. So we have a time bar that pops up down here. So I know I was just checking to see what was going on. They're actually demoing a new feature, the geometry tools. So there's some stuff going on in the back end that might be slowing us down a little bit. And I asked them to stop, and they didn't because they're all excited about showing it to the team. So that's what's going on right here, right now. Oh, there was one. Okay, wait. So this is actually working. This is showing dots. I just saw one show up. Let's make them so I can see them. Okay.
Maybe reload again.
Yeah, I'm just afraid to.
Whoa.
All right, let's start again. we're gonna go. Let's go right back and try again. So new map, connect data set, 8,000 rows, and I'm gonna go directly to the torque here. Style, torque. There we go. Good, that worked. Okay, so I'm just missing something I did in styling. So I'm going to change this to the time, and you'll see the dots collected. You'll see a timeline appear down here, and then the dots will roll out over the time stamp that they have attached to them. So you can see clustering. Now it starts out, and it's just kind of like a fireworks display. So what we want to do is we probably want to tune that a little bit. So let's bring these down in size a touch. And let's do them, make the duration a little bit longer, make the steps more, not that many. Get rid of the trails, and then make them accumulate. And keep the resolution the same. So then what we can do is we can see, let's zoom in so we can see them nice and close. We can see them build up over time, so you can see the earthquakes as they happened.
Can you share this map?
Yeah. So what happens with these, the reason this is generating it takes a long time to generate the first time is that it generates them and then it caches them. And especially with the analysis, the analyses cache really well. And when you rerun them, like the next day, it's already got that, and it's kind of stored on the side, and it reruns them. So the first time you do a lot of this analysis, it takes a little while. But then yes, and when you share it, that same thing happens on the other end. So like somebody watches it once, it loads. It might take a little bit longer to load. Usually it doesn't take this long. But then the next time that it's run, it'll go much faster. It'll actually be right there.
And would they have the same tools to adjust the steps and duration?
They won't. So this, let's go. Let me just, while this is even loading.
So it's like they'll see the video that you've made pretty much.
That's right.
With the play stop type interface.
Copy this link. So this is what they would see, which is a blue bar. There we go. So now you can see them accumulating, and then, there we go. Now the bar showed up.
Okay, so then the user can then stop that bar and adjust the time period shown as well.
You can actually you can do this. This is a jQuery slider, and then you can kind of zoom through, and you can do whatever you want. If I clear this, then it starts the timeline again. And you can also do some great tricks on torque. So into the torque unknown is a great article by Andrew Hill, who's was our chief science officer. Is that what he was? He's actually moved on to another startup, but he did this whole article about how to use torque in more interesting ways than just looking at it a long time. So you can do grid maps, and you can basically you can set the range of torque to lots of different particular settings that do interesting things, like make a static grid map
that updates based on zoom level.
That updates based on zoom level. Oh yeah, there we go. These are all. This is McDonald's. These are Burger King and McDonald's, I believe. And then bubble maps. I use this. Do you know the podcast Serial? I've used this to track their users for them. And what it does is it just basically adds one to the circle every time a tweet shows up. And so you can basically show the volume of tweets or whatever your data is. And then category maps. This one's just a video. That is loading. I actually don't know what this one does. Oh, this one is meant to look at the bubbles, look at the fact that they were stacked on top of each other, and it separates them out. So it creates a third color that has McDonald's and Burger King both in one place to kind of to clarify the data a little bit. So Torque is a really flexible, it's a really flexible platform. I'm sorry, flexible tool inside of CARTO. And the one thing about it is you see how it's grayed out here? It has to be on top, because what it's doing is it's rasterizing data on top of the vectors. And so it needs to be on the top layer, and you can only have one right now. So just keep that in mind as you're using it. And
In a view like this, has all the Torque content being delivered by the time it's displaying, or is it going back to the server? Is it streaming JSON from the server?
no, it
Can you
actually,
just describe a little bit of the architecture of Torque? What's on the
Yeah,
server? What's on the client? What the communication?
So yeah, what it does, so in a normal map, you know, it just delivers tiles. Torque delivers a tile type thing. It's called a tile JSON, and that tile JSON, there's one for every 256 grid, or what that has is information about whether there's an event and when that event occurred. So it has the geo stuff, and then it has the time stuff on it. And
It's always 256 by 256.
Mhm.
When you zoom in, then it's just taking the next scale.
yeah, and so when you zoom in, it triggers a request for more of those things, and it delivers those based off of the client request. And so the data is stored in the database. When it's requested, that data is sent to our tile server, which can prepare these JSON tiles. Those are delivered to the client, and then the client JavaScript library renders those on an HTML canvas here. And so the HTML canvas works well with the raster tiles that Leaflet works with.
Cool.
Yeah.
so are there any questions? Are there any things that, or are there any features that people were wanting to ask about, things that you wanted to do? Filters on a layer, which I think we did, choropleth, and then there were a few other things. Is there anything that somebody wants to do inside of CARTO that, oh yeah.
You have this fabulous feature, you work with GeoBlacklight to be able to take a WMS or a WFS right into CARTO, which is fabulous. And it fails utterly when you try to do one that's licensed, because there's an issue with licensing, right? And therefore there's when you're dealing with touchstone, shibboleth, or some security mechanism. Is anything, and by the way, when it works, it's fabulous. It just brings your data in. So if you're using GeoBlacklight, you have all your data available, and also all the data from a bunch of other schools. And I recognize that it's a huge problem dealing with security, but is that something you folks can think of how to deal with that? You know, I'm not sure how that would even work, and if people would even give you the right to sort that security, or if you can use security protocols from many places. Because it's a fabulous service for the that's free. It's, you know, it can't be beat.
You know, I know so little about this specific topic. I wonder if maybe we should have that specific conversation offline, perhaps with Andrew at NYU too, right?
Yeah, we'd love to have some feedback about it. It's for our users, it is like niche, but like a really important service that we provide.
Yeah,
so yeah, we'd love to be able to improve it, and your feedback would be great.
Sure.
I'm going to go into my map for a minute. Into my account for a second. .com. And log in. Because I want to show you, so we've touched a little bit on syncing, but there's a lot you can do with syncing. And I've created a map. In New York City, we have our open data portal. It's done by Socrata. And let me just judge you for. So I'm kind of obsessed right now with making maps that I don't upload anything, and I only sync from other places, and they're constantly updated. So this is a map, wireless in New York City. So I'm trying to do a comprehensive map of all of the cell phone coverage and then free city-sponsored Wi-Fi spaces. And there are like 4 layers in this, and they're all synced directly from Socrata, just basically using the page itself. And it continuously updates, and it ends up being a proxy for the cell phone reception in the city. So I did something wrong on this, but I can get the publish link, and I can go there. Here we go. So this is New York City, and I've got a series of widgets on the right-hand side. And here it comes. This one does take a bit of time to load because I have it syncing to a data set that's constantly changing, which is the order, like 2 or 3 of them that are changing. It's something, one of them is always updated. So what I've done is I've taken the building footprints for New York City, and I've joined them with the cell tower Department of Building updates. So anytime a cell tower is updated in New York City, it requires a permit, and that permit is a public document. And that comes with a join to the building footprint. So I joined the buildings with the cell phone towers, and then did just a rough range of 200 meters around each one. And then went and got all of the Link and Downtown Alliance, Business Improvement District Wi-Fi zones. So we have what amounts to sort of a rough idea of where all the cell phone towers are in New York City. And we can start using that to do projects where we talk about cell service and cell accessibility. We were talking to NYPD, and one of their main tasks is to figure out where people are traveling through the city and how they're attached to the cell phone towers. So I built this basically thinking about that as a base layer for a future project, so you could understand where they were and start using this for proof of concepts for different uses of communication systems. But none of this data was brought in through normal means. It was all synced directly from our open data set and is constantly updated. So there's a lot you can do. You were talking about a synced data project that was being updated by a lot of people at once, correct?
No, I think they all send it to one person.
Oh.
It gets synced somewhere in the cloud, and then you want to just make a map out of it that constantly updates. Yeah, so that's one of the syncing is one of the stronger features that we have that you can use to make really great projects, and have it constantly be updated. What's next?
Questions?
Yeah. I think maybe one of the things we want to do at the end was to talk about what you wanted to do with CARTO, or what you were considering doing, so we can maybe help you figure out a path to it, to success.
Well, let me ask first, how do we get help as we start using CARTO on our own? What's your help system like?
So we rely heavily on our community for a lot of help. So Stack Exchange.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. CARTO. I spelled that wrong. Thanks. So this is kind of where everything starts. This is where I learned the most about CARTO when I was first starting to use it, because someone always has a question that you were asking, that you're trying to ask, and you end up, just as when you go into a library, you find the books next to it, you end up finding the things next to what you were looking for that you didn't know you needed to do. So this is kind of our first point, specifically with universities. This is our first point of information, right? I'm sorry, this is the second point of information. The first point of information is the academy. So CARTO.
Actually, can I show something?
Yes, you sure can.
I'm really excited about it. Nope, not that.
Okay, good. I'm gonna get out of the way.
So we just released a new product. Our old education materials were here. It was for something we called the editor. It was what CARTO was for several years. But you are the first people. I think it'll work. Yeah, cool. So all of the stuff we did for Builder, we released a new education site today. It's called carto.com/learn. And the first, and my talk at NASIS was about our philosophy for these education materials. Our first line of attack is just hitting basic skills that you need for the Builder. So it's just carto.com/learn. And these just have basic skills for the Builder. And if there are any gaps, we'd really love to know so that we can fill those in, or if there's anything confusing in the interface or anything like that. I'll give you all my email because that's really valuable feedback for us to have complete education materials.
So those are videos or?
These are just write-ups right now.
So it's telling you 5 minutes to do that one and 15 to do.
Yeah.
Those times are the estimated times.
That's right. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So let me see. What's a good one? And analysis methods. Excuse me. Here's the one on Rand's eye. It does that demo that Jeff started. So we're going to be filling this out quite a bit, and then besides this, we're going to have kind of more guided lessons that say more along the lines of the demo I did with finding the number of people close to the earthquakes. We want to show like the type of analytical thinking you need and how to combine the different analysis methods to get the output that you're interested in, and how to use CARTO and other open source tools as a method of doing that. So this is just our first stab at it, basic skills, but we're going to have like much more robust lessons around specific use cases pretty soon.
So, and then if you're still stuck, the Stack Exchange is your next line of defense. And then go to one of your admins and they can get in touch with us. So we, and we can, if you're running into
The administrator of our account, you mean?
yeah. Oh, and then they email me and Andy. And there we are.
Yeah, this learning guide seems extremely helpful just to get people up to speed on using this for various things. So we're getting close to 1:30, and so I guess I'd like to thank these guys for coming out and talking to us. It's been really good.
Thank you.
We have the room till 2. So people are welcome to ask further questions. And
Yeah, if there's something you're thinking about doing and you need an approach, talk to us and we can. Yeah.
You had distances in there. You also have like drive times and walk times?
Mhm.
You do?
Yeah.
And that can be set?
Yep. Jeff, do you know? Jeff, you know more about this than me, but
I do.
If you go to, if you go to analysis, areas of influence, you can do it for time, for sure, but I think we're going to have it for distances as well too. So it's isochrones and iso distances. I don't remember what the other term is for, but yeah, walk time and drive time.
Yeah, we're using MapSense distance matrix to do that.
So is that for like US?
It's based on OpenStreetMap, so I believe that would be international. I haven't tried it internationally yet, but I think it does work that way. We can actually try it. See if it's. Yeah, I think it kind of depends upon the OpenStreetMap quality in that country. Let's see. Let me get rid of the styling on this. Area of influence, analysis. Let me not do it on a big, huge data set like this. Let's see. Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll just go back and I'll filter it down. Let's see, analysis. Filter subsample percent of rows.
While Jeff is doing that, are there any other questions?
Let's do 99%.
You send a link to someone so they can import that back to a website?
Yes.
So you guys can-
Yeah. Once Jeff finishes, I can show.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, another easy way to do it is if you do do the export map, it downloads that file, and you can send that. And
Or you can do like this, publish, and then you can get the embed. Is that what you're talking about? Like an iframe?
or oh yeah, you can share like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can we export. We were actually just talking about this morning.
Okay.
I don't think
Yeah.
there are a lot of ways to do iframes of maps that are really fast, and I think we have kind of the market on that one right now. It's really you can embed them anywhere, and they are responsive. So as a matter of fact, if we go look at one of these ones we have open, where's one that we have open? This one. So see these? Watch the widgets up here. If we go like this and go down to mobile size, they flip, and so they're now responsive, and that means that happens not only on mobile but on Tumblr sites and WordPress blogs, and these legends they're actually a little clunky this week, but they're being worked out. But you can also turn the legends off inside of the interface, so you have a lot of settings on this side. Then you can turn off the search box, you can turn off the zoom controls, you can limit your users to doing nothing if you want to, like that. And then you can also add layer selectors so they can actually turn layers on and off themselves. Yeah, sure. What was I doing? I was doing an analysis, a drive time. Yeah. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do subsample. I'm going to subsample a certain percent of rows just so we can not do drive times on every earthquake in the
I think
world.
you want like a small number.
Oh, wait. 1% of the data. Right. Let's do one. Apply. Done. Okay, so let's do area of influence. Analysis. It's still a lot, isn't it? And then time. Car. Let's do 3,600, which is 1 hour. And do 4 tracks. Let's just do 1 track. Bye. It is working. I don't know how many I did it for, so we'll give that a minute. The one thing, so what was happening is in the back end, our team is releasing the ability to draw points right now. So if you used the previous version of CARTO, you're able to draw points, lines, and polygons, so you can create your own data. And they were getting that fine-tuned, so that's actually going to end up in your interface in the next week or so. So you'll be able to add your own data to a map, and there we are. I think I'm doing too many points, and I got rid of my zoom. Hold on, let me go back to my account because I can do this from, I have a 2-point data set.
Maybe we can just show the demo that's on the data services page.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. There we go. So
Down
these
further, that's these maps.
are,
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about geocoding?
yeah, sure. So geocoding is an analysis. So when you want to bring in a data set, I think this is, something's going on here.
So we're paying for CPU time if we're using the geocoding tool, just like points like the other analysis.
It's actually by row.
By row.
Each credit is a row. So I think each account comes with like 1,000 a month or something that renews.
Is it a million
If
rows, you chew up all your credits.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're slowly.
But we have multiple types. So for street level, yeah.
Yeah.
But for like administration level or something, that's totally free. So we have a service that just says, like pretty much a join with another table and just pulls in that polygon. Or IP address, there's open data sets about where IP IP addresses are geolocated, and so that's a free service as well. But it's just the street level is you have to
Address field.
yeah.
So you talked about the updating of the earthquake layer, and you said that's updated every hour.
Yeah.
But how often does CARTO check?
So we set it to check every hour, and then the original data set was every 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a set. Okay. So you have a great application that this would be fabulous for.
And you can always force update it every 15 minutes, but we just don't allow every 15 minutes to be set as an automatic piece. So you can always go in and you can just sync it yourself. And then programmatically, if you're using the APIs, you can do it in almost real time.
Okay.
So
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
It's so fun.
the question Dan just asked, right, about updates and the possibility of getting fresh data. That would be really good, for example, for animation.
Yeah.
Now, what if you had like a static map and then you wanted to have an animated version? Can you like mix it from one map to the other and say, here's the animated version of this map?
That would probably be just a structure built around it. You know,
Two different layers of the same data. I don't quite know how that would.
so yeah, yes, you can do. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what you would do. So let's pull in earthquakes twice and do
I mean, I'd love to see
one like that,
It's such a complicated thing.
and then add another layer of it,
Sure, I'll give you. Yeah.
and then this. So that's a duplicate of the same layer. Let me style those differently so you can see the difference. So
My question was basically like, I can see how you can do different layers of different styles. Can you like sort of link from one to the other? Can you create a little widget saying, if you want to see this animated? You know,
Thank you so much.
just link you over to
Have a
the
great chance, I guess.
There's some great widgets that has.
It's fun to design.
you can do that in the pop-ups, or you can do that in the legends. So the legends are fully editable. So you can go back into you can go to here and then flip it over. You could put you can put a URL in there.
I can just put it right in there.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
We did like those kind of aggregation thing for those real time, and then you are able to export those fluid down into like Shapefile or CSV data. But those were like data real time. Now I was wondering, can you do like a export like every time your data was updated?
You could do that through the APIs. You could set some sort of cron job, I guess, to automatically export every time. Maybe that might be like a Heroku. Like you could create a Heroku app that basically pushed the data to wherever you want it to every time it changed, and so it was like constantly checking, and then every time it changed, it would like signal you. That goes way above my skill level. But I've seen it done, and it like for my moves data, someone is doing that for me. Oh, so you can see the difference? No. Yeah, that's something. Have you seen Chris Wong's? Sure.
See you later.
Chris Wong. We call it Rumoff. It's the city with the old city on top of the new city.
Oh, Urban Scratch Off.
Urban Scratch Off.
I don't know if it works anymore.
You got. Let's see, urbanscratchoff.com. This is really cool. He did this in CARTO, not inside of CARTO, but as a. Yeah. So if you zoom in, I'm going to zoom in here. Let's zoom into, say, the Navy Yard. Okay, and then you scratch off. Let it load. Google Maps is loading slow too. There we go. Okay, so then if you,
Yeah.
oh, it's not working. Oh, he had, okay, so what it was is he had this great layer of like 1924 on top of 2015, and you could scratch it off and you could see what was underneath it, but now you can just scratch off and get nothing. You just get a pretty little polygon. Oh, So, but no, you have to pretty much do that in an external development space. And there are a lot of those sliders out there that you can use. So, any other questions? Cool. Great, thanks for having us. Oh, I think we need to stop this one.
Yeah, can you stop this?
Just in general.
The data, true CARTO that, or give.
There it is.
Stop right.
And frequency.